Well, good afternoon. It's always good to have the first speaker after lunch, and it's hard to follow what we just went through. So I appreciate you attending this afternoon session. And if you snore, please cover it up good. But anyway, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I think that everybody in here, I guess, writes specs, designs systems, and is responsible for managing projects either on the integrator side or on the consultant or engineering side of things. And so it's of great interest to me how that is done. I'm pretty passionate about the way we evoke our designs, or document our designs to the integrator so that the integrator can understand exactly what the intent is. In most cases, present company excluded, of course, in most cases, you know, the integrator will come up and say, where do you want the camera, Mr. Owner? It's our job to tell him where the camera should go. And then the integrator has to translate that into something that he can use for his own company and the exploits of the system. So it's a thing that's close to my heart. We're going to have a panel discussion about it. Please feel free to talk anytime. I kind of don't want to wait till the last end of it because I think that there's more things that we could talk about. And when I'm challenged, I say everybody wait till the end of the program to ask questions. The problem often comes up that you find the guy writing down the questions and he's all eager to ask the questions. So ask him right now if you've got them. We have the board up here. So without further ado, as they say, we have Jim Kratos, Public Safety and Security. There you go.
Jim Henry.
I've got Jim Henry.
From San Diego.
What did I say, Antonio? What the hell did I just say? Okay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Quickly? 50 plus years in the business, between being a little ruffian when my dad had the business. So grew up in a family business in communications, then security. Sold it to a public company. I bought it back privately, took it public, got bought by Kratos. So I've seen the small business, I've seen the large business. I've been doing, integrated systems both on the commercial and the public side for a lot of years. So there's just a wealth of opinions that I can bring to this. So hopefully allow my esteemed comrades here to go to work.
That's exactly why you were invited. He said that all of you had your opinions. So that's good.
This is a fine
and Lorna, I've known you for years. You and your hub for years, and explain a little bit about what you guys do.
Okay, well, we own a firm called Security by Design. We went into business almost 43 years ago. We were one of 5 design consultants in the security industry that we knew about nationwide. And we're the only one of those, the original 5 that are still in business. And so we basically just do design and engineering, vulnerability studies, things like that, and have been consistently.
I mean, how many years have I known you guys? I mean, back into the
trying to guess. It's 15 or 20 years ago.
I've actually used these guys team with me on projects and very well respected firm. They have I can always tell when one of your people are here because they always know more than I do. Kevin McQuade, tell us.
Around San Francisco.
Yeah, Kevin McQuade with Provost 3, formerly Risk Management Associates. We decided to change names a couple of years ago. I wasn't involved with that, but don't like anything to do. We are a design consulting firm as well, primarily based in Raleigh. However, we'll go anywhere. We also do assessments. We have computer forensics division, expert witness testimony division. We do security background checks for large corporations and small. And so I've personally been in the business since 1979. Started out as an integrator and worked my way up and decided to go on the consulting side about 10, 15 years ago. So.
Great. So as you can see, we have representatives here that could probably answer all of your questions. Everyone, right? Everyone. Or at least express vehemently their opinions, one of the two. So we'll start right away. One of the things that... Trey? God, yes, I'm sorry. Thanks for coming. You know, when I
just a quick story. So Ray Cologne calls me up a week ago and is really twisting my arm hard to come to this thing. I now know as an integrator victim. I didn't realize that was so I didn't really understand what was going on. I'm driving down the road and he's trying to explain what's going on. I'm thinking, maybe. But anyway, he got me here. So Trey West with Knight Security Systems, been in this crazy business since 1983, so a long time. I'm an electrical engineer. I'm currently one of the managing partners for Knight Security Systems. It's a regional integrator out of Texas, primarily in Texas, which is part of why I'm here, right? Because I was close, I guess.
It's a short drive.
I was close. Short run for the big
Short drive, short run.
Yes. But I guess for the last dozen years, we have been running a company called Knight Security Systems that Brian McGee and Malcolm Reed, I don't know if y'all know Brian from Electronics, but Brian McGee and Malcolm Reed started back in 1983.
Right.
Same year I got in this business. We bought Knight Security in 06. We're, as I said, a regional VAR, coming up on almost 100 employees, so pretty successful with what we do. We cover Texas. We define Texas as our territory, and we sometimes get out of the geography of Texas, but mostly Texas has just got so much going on here. We stay locally, so just happy to be here. Hopefully we can try to answer some questions here and add to the discussion.
Great, thanks. We'll make sure to get to you, okay? So anyway, the RFP, the specification process, the whole idea of getting a bid done is kind of a thing for me. How many people here are use direct specifications, you know, that exactly describe all the equipment that you're going to put in and that sort of thing? How many of you use an RFP process where you get them to tell you what they can supply, and then you see if it meets the needs as well, based on cost, based on credibility of the organizations, that sort of thing? How many of you use an RFQ to do a selection of an integrator? Anybody use an RFQ? Everybody knows what that means, right? Request for qualification. Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, so some of these questions will be applicable to specification kind of things. Some of them will be applicable to more applicable to an RFP, where the selection is a little bit random. How many A&E firms do we have represented here? Man, there's a lot. You guys are taking over our business. How many do we have straight consulting firms here? Straight consulting firms. Okay. So, first thing I get to do is go the right way. Okay. So my position here is to kind of moderate and ask the questions. And the way we got about these questions was that I came up with a list of 60 questions. And about 6 o'clock tonight, we'll probably get to all of them, right? Yeah. So we obviously didn't have time to do that. So I pared them down to about 20 or 30 questions that I thought were relevant to this group. I handed them over to these guys and that guy right there, and I said, give me your opinions, rate on a scale of 1 to 10, which questions do you think that you people will appreciate more or need more for your kind of work? I like these things to be actionable. In other words, I like to be able for you to go home and say, well, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I'll incorporate that into my design work. So then I totaled up the answers, and I got a pretty big list of, pretty good sense of what these folks who are professionals in the industry have on their minds in terms of priorities for integrator selection. So let's start off with a question. What specific and quantifiable criteria should we include in our specifications? Which one you got? Lorna.
Okay. Well, when we do a specification, we typically request copies of licenses. We want to know if the integrators have certifications, and if so, how many of their folks are certified for the products that are in the specification. We want to know how much time they have available, how busy are they? Are they going to be able to have the sufficient manpower to service the project? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now, we would also make sure that they are representatives, that they carry those lines for the products, and we prioritize it. We generally say access control is the most complex, and so it's the lead product, if you will. So the contractor at least has to be a rep for that product. And then the other products, if they need sub, in order to get the requirements for being able to support the product on an ongoing basis, they can do that.
Do you think, okay, so quality of integration, you're talking about certification, licensing, that sort of
Well,
thing.
and that they're actually reps
For the product,
Right. They
not,
have training and.
you know, and one of your questions was, does that not trigger, you know, somebody go out and subcontract somebody else to do the work when that guy leaves, you know, you're going to be stuck with the integrator that is not certified. So it could be a trigger mechanism for that.
Right.
Jim, what do you think?
I think a lot.
That's the reason why I'm calling.
Yeah.
You know, so I say you in a second.
So first of all, I invite a higher bar. We need the consultants to put out a higher bar for integrators for projects, which gives us then the motivation to make the investments, you know, on the training. But where I like to see more detail is one thing to ask for, well, do you carry it? Every integrator is going to say they carry it.
Okay.
And there's a big difference between having one person that's enrolled to go into a class for someone and having 50 people over 20 years that you've spent $200,000 worth of training on, and you've done $100 million worth of business with that particular platform. So getting more detail in there, fitting to the project. If you're doing a small project, you don't need to go as deep. But if you're doing an enterprise level project that's 8 figures, you know, you really don't need somebody that just got on board with a platform a year ago. You know, you need the depth and breadth.
Yeah.
And, you know, and as a PSA member, you know, look, nobody is everywhere. So when you do have a multi-site, opportunity, I think a little bit more flexibility with regards to some level of subcontracting there. But you're entitled to understand, if we're going to do that, are we going to do that, and who are we going to choose, and have we worked with them before, and do they have the same tenure qualifications? So,
And to your point,
Yeah.
we do, when we have a project, we go to the manufacturers and we say, give us a list and what level of.
Yeah, and I think for everyone here, I think it's important to note that these are documentable items. You know, you can go to a manufacturer, even some of their web pages actually have the integrators listed, you know, on the certifications and stuff. But
And
so
we do use that information and create the bidders list from
yeah.
the level of.
Yeah, so you invite the bidders, but let's say it's an open bid process, you know, and you really can't do that, you know.
You can require that they be certified dealers on that.
Yeah, you can require that. You also require a number of other certifications. Must be certified for so-and-so years for that. Yes, back in the corner.
So, not necessarily a question, but an observation. So what that means for me on my projects is high price, and also, two, and I'm not saying Jim is, I'm saying, I get back, yes, my guys are certified, yes, the guy's on the roster, but I still get, until I find out, some other guy who just joined the company doing the work. And so that's what I get back. So it's not that we don't specify, which we do, but we always try to make sure that the guys are certified. But honestly, I don't always get the best of breed contractors for a job. And so I get back, yes, I've got 1 or 2 guys on the job who are certified and doing whatever, but I still get a helper doing the job that some other guys should.
Yeah, well, I think you're always,
Back to Lorna's,
Yeah.
I'm with Automatic Systems, and I've worked with Jim Henry for a number of years. A lot of the consultants in the New York market will come to the manufacturers and ask for recommendations, and therefore they get
I do
that
that.
sense of,
Yeah.
you know.
but that's if it's a design basis. In other words, if I select your system as a basis of design, and all these folks know about it, yeah.
I think it's really important, when I'm writing a spec, not only am I going to put that requirement in there that the integrator is going to have the certification, but the person listed on that certification is on the project
Right.
every day the project is in business.
Right.
So it's not just some guy in a remote office that has it, and we've got 15 other guys in the field doing the work. That guy with the cert is expected to be on the project.
Yeah, and multinationals are good at that.
Yeah.
So if you've got a multinational company, yeah, I'm Tyco, I've got somebody in Greenland that's a fishy, you know, yeah.
So it's a full-time employee.
Yeah.
Right, so coming from a different angle, what is everybody's opinion or view on the manufacturer? Because some manufacturers have certified PMO staff for some larger projects they may do. What's everybody's take on, you know, because you're right, there's going to be one guy that lives in Finland, but the project is here in Oklahoma City. So if the manufacturer offers up that service to say we, you know, they have a PMO certified staff, you know, boots on the, or however you want to look at it. What's everybody's opinion of that?
To your point back there, that drives the price up too. I mean, now you got to pay expenses for that guy to come down. I had to pay on a project in New York. I had to pay a guy to come from England in order to maintain the, and he was gone out the door. Now there's a lot of people certified. That was a long time ago, but I use manufacturers for checkout. You know. I have them fly down and say, is this, Allegiant is excellent at that. Where's my Allegiant? There you go. Allegiant is good at that. I include, when I write a hardware spec, I'll include that a manufacturer, authorized manufacturer with the Allegiant.com on the back of it needs to come and certify that that door hardware is installed correctly.
Can I just quickly respond to what Jeff had said? That's really the reason why you need the depth on the major platforms. Because look, the RFP process can take 2 months, right? You know, so who you're indicating, you know, you would assign on the project. By the time the project comes down, you know, a lot of things can happen. The guy can get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
So you really have to have the assurance that you not only have the team on the field, right, that you're saying you're going to put on the field, but you've got a dugout full of people. Right? And you got a bullpen full.
Yeah, and to that point, maybe, you know, if you're a big integrator, maybe you can afford that. Maybe there's not big integrators where I want to go, and I've got a Pepsi bottling company that has 12 card readers, but I've got 1,500 of them nationally. So, you know, sometimes I have to get cousin Jake to help and that. But I think, again, to your point, is that during the submittal process, the bid submittal process, request copies of their certifications. Hard, you know, copies. That'd be Appendix A or Attachment A, yeah.
With a name on it.
With a name on it. Well, yeah.
Those people still
No, companies can be certified too.
So I haven't heard anybody talk about referenceable sites, right? Recent referenceable sites in the local area, right? So if you're considering an integrator for a project in an area, what have they done lately in that area with that product?
Yeah, we got all of them to just that one.
I mean, that's something you can quantify, right? I mean, that's sometimes it's.
How do you quantify that? How do you quantify that?
Well, if you're the consultant or whoever's making the decision needs to ask for multiple references of this product within the last couple of years, maybe. I mean, that would give you
So, I mean, I hate to dig so far deep into it because sometimes I write specs that are not good for 5 years. You know, and for whatever reason, we're trying to fix that, but you know what I'm talking about. So, again, the question is, what do you guys want? I can't specify a product, because you know I can't specify a product.
You can use that as a basis of design. I've never heard that.
I can,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's certain, there's a line we have to draw a line in the sand. And say, I can't go past this, because if not, then it becomes that product, and everybody knows it. But now my question is, and I guess as we go down, we'll probably see more. The question is, what do you guys want me to do to make my job easier and to get a better integrator? You know, because I can't always specify product. And specifying that I get like a qualified integrator with qualified personnel is great. But 5 years down the line, I mean, I'm not going to get that 2 years into my spec or whatever the case is. It's probably going to end up in 5 years. So 5 years down is just saying I want 25 guys on the project who are qualified, good enough for you to weed out the guys who are not going to give me a quality product.
So you don't specify any products? It's
Good.
just an open spec?
I mean, I've done state jobs, I've done government jobs where I've specified a minimum of 3 manufacturers and, you
We're really
know.
not specifying
Yeah.
the product. We're specifying this or better, or
Oh, yeah.
equal.
You know, you don't want people that are jack of all trades, master of none. So you need to give some kind of guidance to us of what products you will accept. Genetech, Milestone, S2, for example, are products that we don't get too far out of that box, right? And we have about 50 technicians in the Texas market that are all advanced trained on these products. We don't go after a dozen products because we can't keep all manufacturers happy. We can't keep our people trained up to the advanced level with all these products.
And that's another issue too, they give you exclusivity that, on that particular product.
A little bit.
Sometimes, and you're the only one in town that has it.
Well, not necessarily, just Genetech, for example, in Dallas-Fort Worth, I think there's probably 10
Yeah.
Genetech providers.
Yes.
So if there's a Genetech project, you'll see 3 or 4 of us in there
Yeah.
after typically. But you need to restrict it down a little bit to make it interesting to us. If you leave it wide open, we probably wouldn't be interested in bidding it.
Yeah, and I think if you leave it wide open, you know, as we get older, we don't want to, I think you wrote me the letter on this one, as we get older, we don't want to get involved in those kind of wide open projects. Particularly if they're RFP based and you've got to do a lot of song and dance and things like that, or I say we, you guys, but you know, that's one of the questions that'll come up later. How can we resolve that if we can ever get off question number one?
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I should have said no comment until
You should have
later.
started with that one.
Yeah. Give me I mean, I know everybody's going to say it depends on the project. Depends on the project. As consultants, we need to know that. But is one certified technician enough that's on your project, or must there be 2 on your project? Depends on how big it is. Where's the cutoff point? You know, and you could very easily spec this. You can say 1 documented certified technician in Genetech has to be on site at all times, or whatever, you know. But what is that magic number? Anybody know?
Well, I don't do a lot of large enterprise level projects, so I'm generally happy with 1 certified person that has oversight of the project.
And you qualify it.
Exactly.
Because we've talked about that. What do you guys think?
I would pretty much agree with that. To take it a step further though, what we've had to do in our area of North Carolina is because a lot of integrators don't install their own systems anymore. They subcontract all the wire plumbing installations. So one thing we have on our specs now is that all final terminations will be done by the certified integrator. And if that certified person or persons is on that project at that time overseeing their staff doing that work. We have made companies go in and rewire entire panels before, because they have their subcontractors do it. And I walked in and took pictures and I said, this is not going to fly. So they spent the entire weekend with their certified personnel staff and they rewired the entire panels. With access control. It's a small job, but it didn't matter. So, you know, the one certified is fine, but he's got to have a backup.
Yeah.
You know, but like when I said, if he gets hit by a bus, or something happens, you know, he gets hurt, he's injured, he's out, it's the death in the family, what are you going to do?
So at bid time, would you say 2 people, one of which would be on the site? Is that?
Pretty much.
Is that,
We look at also the size
that's
of
a
the
pretty-
organization, like one was saying too. We look at the size of the organization. If you're a onesie twosie, we're not even probably looking at you. You've got to have a good staff on board. You've got to have a good presence in the area. You've got to have been in business for at least 10 years. you've got to be certified on your product for at least 5 years. You just can't have gotten it the last 6 months ago. And so that means you've made an effort, and you're put the money in to represent that product.
So we have two things here. We have two guys on staff, 2 people on staff that are certified manufacturers. And then one of those that needs to be on the project at all times. But manufacturers have different levels of certification, Genentech being one, you know, and different types of certifications.
And
So,
the certified person has to do all the programming.
yeah.
Right.
So, you know, open non-proprietary hardware really helps here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So consider Mercury, for example. If you're talking about access control, there's what, 30 some odd companies that
Right.
use Mercury. So you don't have to have your specific Genentech guy or your open options guy or gal out there all the time. I mean, if it's a Mercury project for us, that's beautiful, because all the access control solutions we
That's a
provide,
very good point.
we organize our product selection where every one of them can use Mercury, and we prefer Mercury. So our technicians see the Mercury platform over and over and over again, and it's worked really well for us. You don't have to have that specialist, that advanced certified, unified elite Genentech guy or gal.
Yeah.
You don't have to have them until you really get
Into the programming piece, because it's all better of DC wiring.
And if you put it in the spec that they've got to be on site all the time, that's just going to raise the
That's
cost.
going to really raise the budget. That was my next question. Can we tolerate that budget among the integrators? You figure, what's a certified tech cost? 85, 90 bucks an hour? Well,
What's the
depends on where you.
In Texas, it's more than that.
Yeah, about 160.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so you got to figure 8 hours a day for that same guy.
Yeah, you're wasting his time.
And it's a super waste of time. It's a super waste of time. Okay.
So Jim, it may be a foregone conclusion, but what about licensing, bonding? Is all of that verbiage also included in
Oh, yeah.
this?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a number of bids that couldn't make the bonding.
Right.
You know, all of my bids, you have to have the license. I had one very large company who would have won the bid, but they forgot to include their bid bond.
Right.
So I had to exclude them. I mean, that was just a dumb mistake. And, I apologize to the lady that I just, okay. So we've talked about manufacturer certifications. Have anybody received the email from me? One guy about the whole bunch of certifications that you could possibly get. I spent a lot of time gathering and just looking up all the certifications, and I sent that to everybody here. What I'm asking you to do is return that to me, and if you haven't get it, leave me your card, and I'll make sure you get a copy. And you guys too. So return that to me, and I'll publish a paper to the guys that returned it to me. I'll publish a paper back saying what everybody thinks that are the most relevant certifications that you should have. Because we're moving into the IT world. You know, CompTIA and Microsoft and all the Cisco, all of those kinds of things are germane. Even if you're not a Cisco user, the principles are quite good. So who would, what certifications outside of manufacturer certifications would you guys require? Or suggest that we require, I should say.
Network Plus, for example.
Network Plus is on the list.
Certified Security Plus. Anything that would be and have to do with networking. You said we're moving into the IT space. I would suggest we've been there for
I'm sorry, that was
for years. Right? I mean, our guys are computer technicians, basically, and network technicians, and they don't have to design the network per se, but they have to know the principles behind it to be able to guide whoever's working on the network side. We're usually using a customer's network. It's typical these days. We have to guide them to what we need to make a successful project come together.
CCNA credentials are no longer, the exception, in this industry. CCIE is a different example.
Right. I've got them all listed in that thing. If you haven't got it, please leave me your card, and I would really appreciate it. What that would do is translate into a quantifiable piece of specification, and you could,
Could you repeat the certifications that you think a integrator can have their people get? Because I'm not familiar with the ones you mentioned.
Well, I meant the CCNA certification.
Cisco
Network Administrator System.
Right.
But then-
Certified network.
They have a whole alphabet soup of.
Yeah, and some of these guys are $200,000 a year
Yeah,
folks,
you're-
so, you know, I'm not.
You're not gonna find too many security technicians.
Right, right. And
I'll be a security tech for
And
long.
we
Yeah,
don't
right.
require that the security integrator necessarily have those certifications, but that they have to sub to an organization that has those in order to program the switches and firewalls and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
the network security,
We require the
yeah.
middle of the end result of
Yeah.
programming, and that we know that all of the wires are tested and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
gone through the testing and stuff. So my question to you in this thing that I sent out is, do you think this certification is just asking too much? That's the first column. And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, you think this is absolutely required for an integrator to do that? And I don't think any of them really are, except for certification. To 1, which is, this is crazy BS, you don't need this kind of thing, you know. Yeah.
And nobody's mentioned it yet, but we'll require CPP sealed drawings that they submit and also RCED.
CPP or you mean as Certified Protection Professional?
Yes.
Okay. I've never heard of that before.
I don't think they can,
I don't think they can. There's no registration that I'm aware of that might be fluff, but it might be,
They can seal drawings. CPP can seal.
No, you can't.
He can stamp the drawing. Let's put it
I can stamp it right, but I wouldn't put it where it says seal in the title block. I wouldn't put it there. I'd put it someplace. And I don't know if that a CPP is really qualified to do that. I think a PSP may be qualified to do it.
Well, we've had that argument. I'm not sure I agree with that argument because you've got operational requirements that have to be met as well as physical security technology requirements that have to be met.
I mean, ASIS doesn't have a seal for the CPPs and PSPs. What we see is they want their customers.
There's a stamp, there was a stamp, I don't know.
They did have a stamp.
Well,
I
yeah,
know there's a stamp.
yeah, there is a stamp, but it's not the same stamp. You're an engineer?
I'm
Well,
talking about a PE.
we're talking about a PE versus a CPP. There's a big difference. That the professional engineer has all sorts of credentials that we have that are not recognized, but on how to lay out electrical. But quite frankly, most of the screw-ups that I've seen have been generated by electrical engineers. No offense to them, but despite that fact, it's a low voltage thing.
CPPs and PSPs.
Yeah, there's a low voltage element to this that in some states, in my state, a PE is not required to stamp the drawings.
Yeah, but in some states they are.
Yeah. Well, no, in low voltage drawings. Now, anything high voltage, they have to stamp, and I'll engage a PE for that purpose. We used to stamp all our drawings only because we had an engineer on staff, but we don't do that anymore.
Jim, one more thing about the certified project managers, CPMs. I think that's becoming something that I'm taking a very hard look at because we're having a very difficult time on some of these jobs where people are not qualified they're not project managers. Certified, and so we're taking a look at that now to see if we should include that or not. You're right, that's going to raise the cost, but that separates the good from the bad, if you will.
And you're talking about the CIA certification for Certified Security Project Manager.
Yes.
Now, and to that point, that would bring the element of risk in it. So in my view, that would mean that somebody's thinking about risk. When John Schnatter or Papa John's comes in and says, that door, I need to add that door, there's going to be somebody that says you're going to screw up my entire plan for access into that building if you add this door. Did you talk to John? Yeah, well, I mean, so I think that certified security project manager is a good. Are integrators open to that?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
So are manufacturers.
Huh?
So are manufacturers.
Manufacturers say that you can't install my product unless you have a.
So my first question was a little bit going out there to get some information back. So
Yeah.
Certain manufacturers are very keen on having the right certifications because some of the solutions that manufacturers, they're not for the everyday person.
Yeah.
So, yes, high-end certification, CPM, CISSP, understanding the internet, CCNA, 100%.
I'll be looking specifically for your comments on did you get my document?
No, sir.
Okay, I sent it out at 3 a.m., by the way, that's how dedicated I am.
Here's the quantum, right? So we have manufacturers out there certain have, very complex solutions. So now the pool of integrators is small.
Mm-hmm.
So those manufacturer needs the support of this room to help set the expectation on the consumer.
And that's a good thing, that the pool of integrators get small, and that's a good thing for
If you consistently ask for it and enforce it,
Right.
which is my panel tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of great specs written by the consultants, right? And then if it's a big project, you got a GC.
You got a GC.
Apple, you guys, we don't need you anymore. We got your spec. Now they go to work deciding what they're going to leave.
I'm running into that problem right now with power supplies. I've got power supply, where's the power supply guy? So I'm in here. Oh, well, yeah. And the GC, he thinks the GC approved a change in my design that required a totally different power supply.
Right.
At any rate, I just go crazy when I see that happen. I said, who did it? When did it happen? That's not your responsibility, but the architect usually wins out in most of the cases. Okay, so here's a good one that was popular. What do we do? And I would ask integrators in particular, and people kind of on the front line of the installation, what are some of the things that we include in our designs that create needless cost? When some integrator, all of us have been to the table when an integrator comes in who's friendly with the owner, and the owner, he's got the owner's ear, and he says, oh, this is bullshit. We don't need this thing. Just get it out of here. And of course, the integrator's already put that in his package. And he just gobbles up the money, or we're there to reduce that kind of activity, but it could happen. Yeah.
I would start with ambiguity. I mean, is it clear what you want? Is it four-letter word?
And for us, it also might be a liability issue.
It's we look through specs, and then it's clear as mud, and we can't even tell how many of the types of devices, where they're located. You can't. There's conflict between the spec and the drawings, and this is things that we see in these bids, and it makes us not want to deal with it, right?
How about getting rid of spots and dots?
Spots and dots.
Yeah, I mean, if one of the guys in this room comes out and says, I want every door card control. Well, what the hell is that? So how many of you guys put together a spec like that? There's something that's so general, it can be fit in an 8.5 by 11. Anybody not do drawings? No? But yeah, specificity is the issue. But let's talk about specific things. Like, I'm a big fan of door junction panels. A box on the wall that goes up that houses all the input devices from your door on the bottom and output from the door back to the distribution panel or to the idea closet or wherever. Some people want to put conduit or raceways, all the wiring in raceways, which may or may not be. Is that, in your view, needed?
Well, the question is, who's doing it?
You're doing it.
Well, not necessarily. If it's conduit, that's typically in the electricals.
Well, no, but I'm the one that tells the engineer that everything should be in conduit.
Right.
EMT or metal raceway.
Right.
Well, for us, that's generally driven by the client as to whether they require conduit throughout the facility for their security cabling, or if it can be plenum, or where it can be, what the markings are. That's typically the client.
It's regulatory driven, which is client specific.
But it's also incumbent on us to table that conversation.
That's right. Yeah, and whether the risk warrants it, right?
Even with a federal job that's a level 4 facility that's got to be a conduit, they'll waive it if they understand the cost impact on occasion. So
and also depending on what the risks are. Because,
right.
I mean, there are people out there who've told me that they have cabling that doesn't necessarily need to be in conduit. And I've also had somebody give me a rundown of cables that were put in conduit that ended up being much more of a liability being in conduit than if they were run, quote unquote, exposed on a tunnel wall, because this was a tunnel application. And basically, they were saying that the cable being in the conduit was much more of a liability in the event of a fire than if it was not. And based on the demonstration, it made sense to me that it not be the conduit. But if I had an integrator that came into a baffle, I said, well, Jeff, you know what? You're better off not putting it in a conduit because of this, or this reason. I'd be more than happy to listen to it and possibly, go that route versus having to put it in.
Yeah, the issue of raceways is one, and there are things that you can put on the chopping block when the budget gets high. Budget gets run out, I should say. And raceway is typically one of those things. It's nice to have everything in raceway, and I'm not necessarily, the security issues, okay, but I'm worried about just some guy just coming up and pulling it out and just doing stupid stuff, not necessarily with criminal intent. What about other things like shop drawings? How many of you guys require shop drawings with your work? Now, how many of you review those shop drawings? What do you guys think?
Well, I think you absolutely need that. Who's going to service this thing after it's done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big concern. You don't have the drawings a year or two down the road, and you're trying to find something to provide service or fix something. Absolutely.
Those are essential.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at is things that, again, I'm back to my favorite entity, the GC, right? But, when there's ambiguity in the spec with regards to, or they just toss the responsibility for coordination, access to the construction lift, all of this stuff is on us, on us, on us. The more that you can get the end user to drive the GC to take ownership of the responsibility of ensuring us that we're not going to have gayudes of wasted time trying to get access to the lift, to get our materials onto the floors, dealing with construction shanties, things like that. Every time you have that ambiguity and that risk, you have to throw dollars at it because you just don't know how much time.
How about the ambiguity between door hardware and the integrator?
God, that's a two-day discussion there.
That's a total. I purposely did not put that in because it's too big of a discussion.
So my question is, so would you rather us specify, I guess, down to the nitty-gritty, shop drawing level, what you guys need to do, versus giving you the option of being able to, constructability? I mean, it's a matter of constructability. So I mean,
much rather have to be as specific as you can.
And that's not just him speaking, that's every integrator out there.
That weeds out the risk of the wannabes that come in and assume they can skate around that.
90 degrees right here.
Detail.
A problem about it too, if I get too specific as an integrator doesn't take ownership of the design and finish it. Because what happens is they say, well, you show this particular reader bar this certain way in this location. Well, if they want to move it in the field, they say, well, update the drawings to move it to this location so that we can install it, because they don't want to generate shop drawings in their own, because they use them. Because then what happens is they're trying to use the design drawings as the shop drawings in the field.
Okay, so you do a termination set of drawings.
If I did.
And I don't get that detail. Because there are ways that the integrator knows to get maximum benefit out of the way it's wired and stuff like that. All I'm looking for is the principle, and how many of you do termination drawings? As an engineering, you're the doctor, so you do actual how do you know what system you're going to use, what hardware you're going to use? You have to specify all that stuff out to them.
It varies in the type of project definition. If we're putting something into West Africa, where you've got to fly in a technician for 24 hours for him to get there, we're getting down to the gnat's ass on those drawings, and it's going to be specific so that Jim can do it from his New York office and support that system with some numbnuts who all he knows how to do is deal with he's not colorblind, and he can deal with a basic read a voltmeter and screw a wire in and support much of what's going on. So that varies. But I think it's sort of a step away of what we see as the drivers that we're sensitive to, and we certainly screw it up in both ways, I'm sure more than we're even aware of. But what at least we try to do as the cost drivers are, the integrators that are good, if we qualified them well, they have processes that are their administrative project management processes. I don't need to dictate to them to use my process and my forms. I want to be able to dictate that they use what's most efficient within their company business structure that meets a criteria. If they don't have it, then they use my templates.
Yeah, but you're talking about means and methods versus
yes. There's means and methods there, but if they don't have anything, then I got to give them something so they have to start. The other piece in specificity, which I think in the ambiguity is always equals dollar signs, but we talked about all the things to put into a spec. But where I've gotten in our feedback, I'd like to get y'all's feedback as well, is the big place to have specificity is what is going to mean the definition of success when this is over in a system acceptance test. It's all the doors work. Well, to Jim, that may mean one thing, and to Trey means something else, and to me, it's totally different. So there has to be
huge
a
flagpole in
framework.
functionality between, and especially some consultants will take, they can't name the manufacturer, but they'll take a functional piece out of the spec and cut and paste it in.
How many of you guys do that?
And
Use manufacturer's
and the
spec?
manufacturer's spec shows all the things, let's talk of VMS and storage and frame rates. Here's what it's capable of. There's a big difference
Between capable
of and included.
You can also dig out and put dirt and flower beds in there, and it can be a potted plant too, right? It's capable of doing
and
a
move in
potted.
there and set it up, frame rate, store. Well, depending on the activity, we should get about this time. No. I said we're going to have an absolute 90 days. Okay, we'll program it for that. Well, I don't like the level of resolution I'm getting now. Well, that's what you want, but it says it's capable of. Well, it is capable of, but you need another 2 terabytes of storage in order to get this and that. The clarity there is what's...
Yeah. How many of you guys specify frame rate, bandwidth, and what another? Resolution. Yeah, resolution for your thing. Are any of you familiar with view sets, pixels on target, stuff like that? Do you specify that kind of thing? So we have a few that do that. But that's more specificity to you.
Let me just say one thing, get back to your point. Most of the projects we put together, there's a question and answer period. Okay? If it's, even when we get like a 2 or 3 week process, we'll send out an RFP or a bid. We put in there a time frame because we know there's going to be questions between the specifications and the drawings. That is your time as an integrator to ask those questions. Shame on the integrator if they wait till the Thursday before the bid is due on Friday to start putting the job together, and then they win the job, and then they cry after the fact.
Yeah, and
we got a lot of that.
And here's how as a consultant I deal with just that situation. If you don't tell me up front at bid, then you don't get to make the change. You need to tell me up front at bid. By that time, we've accepted your bid, assuming you had no questions, you had no issues, you didn't. But if you submit to me something that's not to spec, I'll reject it right out of the bat. And you can do that, but you really need to specify that up front, so it becomes part of the cost issue.
Well, if you're going to be, if as a consultant, you're going to be a hard ass on the integrator through the bid process, you're going to have to be hard ass on yourself to make sure your crap's together, and you give them the opportunity to equitably and reasonably review and get the feedback. And the owner has to have a
back. You got a problem.
You got a problem.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And make it where it's set up to where when Knight comes in with their answers, they haven't skewered their ability to win because there's...
You would like everybody getting off the same sheet of music. I mean, if you got
I'm good with competition. I'm fine with competition as long as we're all dealing with the same sort of work and it lines up with what the expectations of the stakeholders are at the end. Then you're not going to get these wild ranges, on $1 million job that go from 200K to 1.8. It's seriously wrong.
Yeah, if we get 5 bids back and there's a 50% difference between all the prices that we pay.
Do anybody else do that kind of bid analysis, like line them all up and say, why is there so much difference? Do you do counts at bid time? In other words, what is your original count on the number of cameras? And it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you accepted it, it will be. But you have a count on the number of cameras as an example, and the guy says, well, I'm only supplying 10. Well, all the rest of them are existing. No, that's not the spec. You have to replace them all.
Yeah, we generally find that if somebody's way low, they've left out half the products.
Yeah.
And if they're way high, they've doubled them somewhere.
Yeah. Like on the Papa John's, the guy that got the bid said, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to apply door hardware.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember a day when you got 200 to 1.8 on a $1 million job, and you threw out the low, and you threw out the high.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen anymore.
The whole guy got a bond.
You betcha. Okay, yes. One more question.
Yeah, I got a question for Jim. You mentioned that you want a specificity, whatever to say that.
Yeah, what he said.
Right. And you mentioned things like access to the lifts and stuff like that. And I'm not sure there's anything that we can do to help you there, but can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Okay, so again, I'm getting into my section, but you guys are in the position to get at the C level of the end user to ensure that the behavior of the GC that works for the end user, if we're under them, right? If we're not under them, then it's an easier world. But if we are underneath the GC, then what we find too often is that, first of all, the whole operations team of the end user they're not even invited to any part of this process until a couple of weeks before the TCO, which is a big problem, because then all these myopic decisions are made between the GC and the development team of the end user, which are only looking at, turning the keys over, we're done with the project, we bring it in under budget, and if we've left some grenades around here with the ping pole for operations, well, that's still fine, But our relationship and your relationship long term is with the C-level of the owner, and we're with the operations people.
And
not necessarily.
They're looking at us saying, yeah, you're watching out for us on this job, right? I don't have that control, because I can only communicate through my chain of command through the GC and through the RFI process and what have you. So to the degree that you can get owners to involve their operations teams with their development teams through the process and stay engaged through the award process and after the award process and the execution, because there will be value-added decisions that have to be made and tough trade-offs and compromises. And then it's not, you come back in to review the project at the end, what happened to my job? Well, all these decisions were made, of course, first you look at the integrator, well, what the hell to do to cut all these corners, right? It's like, GC comes to you and say, well, we got to save $300,000 out of this $400,000 job. What are we getting rid of? And the consultant's not there at the table to be part of that decision.
Yeah, how many think attending project meetings would be helpful in just what you're saying? Yeah. And a lot of these folks out here are representing an architect or under the engineering, not the owner. Right. I would rather have it the owner. Because that way I can give the architect all kinds of hell about the design that the physical septet things and the things that we do, and not feel like I'm criticizing my boss. So I would rather everybody understand what I'm talking about there? And so, but if you're from an engineering firm, you're typically working at the pleasure of the architect. You don't get to make those choices. He tells you where the cameras go, and that's where you put them.
Most consultants are either working for the architect or for the registered engineer.
I had a lot of pitchback on that.
Yeah, once construction starts, it's a collaborative effort between us, the integrator, and the owner. We all work together to make.
So the owner is telling you where to put the camera.
Yeah, or we place the cameras on the drawings with the direction of the owner, and then they get out in the field and they say, well, it's not going to work here for whatever reason, so we go back to the owner and work.
I think we've all done that, but I guess the difference in the consultant is that we figure out where the camera. We act in the owner's behalf. based on risks, based on circulation, based upon a lot of things, where that camera should be, then take it to the owner. Here's what we recommend. He rubber stamps it, and then typically he doesn't really care that much. Some do, some don't. So that's an issue that could drive cost. Do you guys add for that cost for managing the project in terms of, this contractor, this GC sucks, he never does what he promises?
Oh, there is definitely a history multiplier.
Yeah.
And there should be on the award process too. If you have an integrator that you've worked with for 35 years and they've got that track record with you, and now you're going through a construction project and you got to get 3 bids, so you bring to have no, multiplier or discount level for that kind of proven history where you can't screw up with this end user. You have too much at stake with that relationship. There is an additional value that integrator brings in. Knowledge
of the system, knowledge of the owner, knowledge of the process.
Likewise, if you've got an incumbent integrator that's done a horrible job for you, and you keep going and giving them more work because they're giving you a low number.
Yeah, I harken back to the story that says of a guy who robbed the bank. Prior to robbing the bank, he rubbed lemon juice all over his face and hands. And he thought that a camera would not pick him up because he had doused himself with lemon juice. And as they were hauling him away, he said, it's the lemon juice. It's not the lemon juice that failed him. So my point is that he didn't know what he didn't know. And typically owners, unless they're a pretty sophisticated level, rely on us to make those kinds of decisions. So the history with the existing integrator could be a good thing or could be a bad thing.
Right.
And the owner doesn't know that they're getting a bad job from this integrator. And we got to put in something different.
Well, but if their operations people are involved, the operations people are all saying, what are we doing giving another job to them? Every other project is a mess, but the development people don't care.
Yeah.
They don't hear about what's going on.
But the operations people are always the one that we should center on. They're the ones who run their system admin. But the only system they ever seen is that Genentech system or that AMAG system or some other kind of system. That's the only thing that they know. They don't come to events like this. They don't go to ASS.
Avoid, I know I've run into it as well as Jim probably, well, I know you have, where the GCs are bidding these jobs and they're leaving out certain security components out of their bids, then they win the job, and then they're trying to get the integrator to pay for what they didn't put in their budget.
Yeah, they do that in part one. They say anything else that's required to make this, it's your job to put it in here. And that goes back to your point.
But to get back to what Jim is saying about how we can help him, and I'm all for that. I want you to be profitable because we all want a good job. We suffer from a lot of those same issues that you do, of getting the operation people in. I don't know why it is, but the architects and the people leading these projects really don't want us talking to them. And even though we ask,
Until the end user at the C-level understands that this is costing them money and more money in the long run, this historical symbiotic relationship between development, groups within companies, and I've seen it so many times that it's not a specific company, it's the culture of whether it's property management or even...
Well, I think it's cost.
Exactly, because the GC only cares, and the development people only care about the cost for their construction project.
Right. It's a project mentality.
They get squeezed, and they're going to squeeze money out of it. They're going to not only squeeze us by trying to put stuff on that's scope creep, that we have to now get confrontational with them on, but they're also going to try and find things that they're going to dump into their operations people. And if you add those two together, it could end up costing the owner more to do this than to get all the stakeholders in at the beginning of the project and keep them together as a team through to the end of the project.
Lorna, we're about running out of time. Lorna, you had a comment?
Oh, I was just saying that it's capital costs that they're interested in, not the overall costs.
Yeah, it's a project mentality, right?
So that
One and done,
the
done.
operational costs.
But what does the end user want from this thing in the end? A year or 2 or 3 down the road? They want to make sure this thing's going to work right when needed because there's no second chance. I mean, we put in this $1 million system and it's got, I don't know, 300, 400 IP cameras. They just expect that all of them are working and recording all the time.
That's the reason why they
And
hire us.
nobody's watching over this, nobody's monitoring the health of this thing, there's no service level agreement, nobody coming behind.
Yeah.
Then they're not going, there's at least 10 or 15% of those cameras aren't working at any point in time, right? You guys understand that,
As an
right?
integrator, you need to do what we used to call out to the developer's job, suggest and sell.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You got to get to the end user as soon as that job is over, or even before that. You got to get to that end user and introduce yourself, and you're going to be his best friend.
Yeah, and you got to, and also the consultant should facilitate that relationship. I want the end user in the design meetings. I want the end user sitting at some of these project meetings where these issues come up. I want the end user involved with the training. Anyway, we're running out of time here, so let's ask one question. To your point, how do we ensure ongoing service will be provided for our clients after we leave, and you guys are there? What's the best way to ensure that it keeps up?
Well, we always specify a 4-hour response time, and a whole list of criteria there, and also the service agreements. We want you guys, the integrators, to come back and be part of this as an ongoing thing.
But don't divorce that, because how many times have we seen the construction team or the GC take the service, all right, we'll deal with that later. They want to get the award without the overhang of somebody that has an office within 5,000 miles of this location, because they're giving them the price that they want.
Yeah, one of the issues that I come back with that I've learned over the years is that the 4-hour response time is a given, but not necessarily for everything. So I give somebody the authority to make a call whether or not it's an emergency response or whether or not it can wait till the next business day.
Well, we do health monitoring. We have a support center to do that. And what we found is you can do things proactively by watching the health of these. If there's a camera, take a camera. If it's offline, if you can fix it remotely by cycling power into a port on a switch, that kind of thing. If you can pick, your 4-hour response is just getting the thing back up and running. The customer doesn't care if you did that remotely or if you had to.
That's a very good point. That's a very good
Depends on who the client is.
that's very good.
It allows you remote access.
Yeah.
Most even, we have a lot of government customers that allow us to have remote access when they understand what we're capable of doing on their behalf to make sure this stuff actually works when they need it to, right?
Yeah. And so the health monitoring is an issue.
But Trey, what you've described is a value proposition that they've identified and seen. And what happens here throughout the process, from consulting through deployment and management and the like, is unless the operators and the business management sees what's going in as a value proposition, if it's a regulatory driven check the box, they don't see a value proposition, so why do I want all that? That's going to be the key. You came in later with a value proposition that was bought, whether it was because the consultants didn't sell it in, whether somebody else didn't sell it in, and you were able to pull it off. That's great.
It just helps.
That's a challenge for everyone in the project.
We're all on the same page
to reinforce.
We're all saying the same thing. It just makes it more powerful.
Yeah, I think the issue here is health monitoring. This is doing something before it breaks.
But that's an example of value proposition. Is the health monitoring. That's one example. Having your cameras actually providing some value, you're going to actually care that it works, so you want to have some help.
I guarantee you they care when there's some big problem that happened to the CEO's car, or there was a, panic situation with somebody in the lobby with a gun and the camera didn't work. We're all going to be calling the car company. How many of us have been, in the middle of that, over the last 20 years?
The trouble is you don't find out about it until shit happens.
We're all calling the car company, right? It's all your damn system didn't work, the system you designed didn't work. It's, we're 2-3 years down the road, and it's who's watching over this stuff?
Is that not a specifiable thing?
It is a specifiable thing, yeah. And you will now see just that comment he made in every one of my specs.
That's one of the points Jim and I were talking about this the other day. A lot of times we get contracted only to do the design, and we don't have a choice. They'll say, we'll talk about bid and award services or construction management services, or we'll put off doing the warranty agreement until after the system is in for a year, and we don't get included in that conversation. And that's something that we should all be striving to insist happens, but it doesn't always.
Yeah, in the first year of
problem that the operations folks and the developers are not thinking about.
Do you think we should have a multi-year contract included in our system?
Well, we put an RFP for maintenance, just for maintenance of the issue that's happening in the wiring system. We put such a huge CCTV system for a specific client that was just having major issues and losing monitors. And we finally said, let's put an RFP out, get a maintenance contractor on board and take care of all those issues. And working great.
A single throat to choke, as they say.
Can I make a suggestion of get rid of the word maintenance? It's a service.
That's right. That's right.
So if you call it maintenance, people think you're up there.
It's reactive. It's reactive.
It's
in the RFP.
So a quick question back to the operational piece where the owner needs to be involved. And we look at the need for coordination between 8 and 28. Why can that not also be included in the specification if the consultant has the ear of the owner and have some type of language in there that says that the desired stakeholders are?
That pressure's on, you have to have the owner, the consultant, the architect, and the manufacturers all lined up on that.
We'll put that in the coordination.
Multiple manufacturers were in the fields you're now in have said to me for a decade, if the lot's got a wire or a battery, it belongs in the, belongs in 28, right?
Right.
But the realities, we'll get right up to the end, no, because the pressure, the economic pressure from those relationships that exist between the door suppliers, the GCs, they don't want to pass, even though they have no infrastructure to support the programming and the reprogramming from construction to occupancy and whatnot, but it ends up going.
So make it the other way around.
And then we got more risk because now we have no revenue and no margin from providing the product. Who's the one that they call in order for the problems?
Yeah, when that door keeps on giving you false alarms, nuisance alarms, we like to call them. When it keeps on giving you nuisance alarms, who's the first person they call? And you're going to point to it and say, it's a hardware issue. Are we out of time here? Okay, good. Keep me honest on it. If we lost my train of thought. Turn on the questions.
While you're looking for that, there's one thing I wanted to inject that's really important. I know I can safely say present company excluded, because if you're a specifier at this conference, I'm 100% sure that you're not guilty of this. But just like there's good integrators, bad integrators, there's good GCs, bad GCs, there's good consultants and there's bad consultants. So what we're talking about here is driving the owners to understand the value of keeping you guys engaged through the entire life cycle of the process. There are some consultants out there. One in particular comes to mind, but he's retired now, so I won't mention it. Of course I won't mention his name. But he was very clever at seeding these stink bombs into specs and knowing that no level of RFIs was ever going to vet them out. And at the end of most of the projects, the manufacturers were liars, the integrator was, and he had to be retained forever to save the owner from the consequences of all these evildoers. And when you have a history of 10 years and 100 projects that all have that same common denominator, so somehow within the consulting community, I don't know how you police it, I don't know how you expose it, but there are those that do that embed their own job security by putting those stink bombs in. And that's why I say, do I have a premium for some consultants, or will I walk away no matter what from a service? I will, because I look at that history. It does repeat itself.
Integrator told me once, he said, first you get a Jim Elder job and you don't make any money. Second job you bid, you don't bid.
You're too high.
Are
Or, you know, there's definitely a risk reward on the side. I'm sure you guys all.
Yeah. I'm very particular about some of the things I do that might not agree with everybody.
You know, we're not charitable organizations. We're trying to make some money and keep people employed, good people employed and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know if you wanted to get on this.
Yeah,
I have an opinion.
and maintain is one of your ones that you don't want to use.
I would go back to call it a service level agreement, because the IT world understands service level agreements, they embrace them, they have them with Microsoft or whatever computer server vendors they have. Don't use the word maintenance at all. Needs to have a defined response time, needs to include all the SUPs from all the different vendors, right? Whether it's Milestone or Open
Sometimes
Office.
we call it health maintenance.
Yeah. So, but the owner's gonna forget about that until something breaks, and then Genentech won't even talk to you anymore unless you have their yearly SSAs, right? So somebody needs to be looking out after that, and in our case, that's what we want to do. We want the service business from our customers to maintain these long-term relationships. We were trying to make us all look good, so the system's gonna work. It's a very successful project, not just at the end of the project, but 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
You cultivate a relationship
I
with
put
it.
the SSAs in the original spec.
For 1 year. How many years? I'm talking about 5 years.
3 to 5.
Yeah, that's
3 to
what
5,
we
depending upon what we.
Yeah, and if you put a 3 to 5.
But that may end up being different than the health maintenance spec that we do, because sometimes we can't have any ongoing service by the integrator in the project because of the type of project it is. Say it has bond money or something, and
Right,
it's illegal. And so then we have to go to the end user and get them to put out a separate RFP
For a service.
It's just establishing,
servicing the system past the warranty.
just getting you folks to establish the importance of this to keep this thing to actually work. Because if you don't, if you just think you're gonna go through the warranty and then hit T&M, this thing's gonna break, and Murphy gets involved and it's gonna break in a very bad way.
Well, our story there is you can replace the system in 5 years, or you can have somebody that actually helps you maintain it.
Yeah, exactly.
The issue with maintenance is a good and a bad thing. Some owners don't want any maintenance contract at all after the first year warranty period. Service level agreement, I'm saying, they don't want the service level agreement at all because of the cost. And when you put in $1 million, $2 million systems, that service agreement is going to be, what, 10% of the, 5% of it? Something like that. Yeah, of that cost. So that's a big hit, particularly if it's on a bond issue where you don't have the money to expend every year. You know, question about it?
Perhaps there could be some suggested wording that becomes standardized for the community in those cases, because wording is key. I know in a lot of projects, if there's any federal grant funding money, they won't pay for any type of maintenance, and that can be a killer in the project.
Oh, it can be, yes.
But there's wording that can be used. They'll use warranty or things like that that'll get them 3 or 5 year coverage. It's all about the wording, but the client usually knows how to do it, but they're not involved. So if there's some best practice wording from the integrator and the consultant side, maybe that can be emphasized sort of across the board, so people can make it more effective from the beginning of the designs.
When you get my report back, if you guys fill that out, my report on the qualifications, I'll give you some wording that I use pretty successfully, you know, and it's based upon a point value. Contractors submitting bids must have a point value of X, depending upon what the project is, selected from, you know, any one of these 9,000 things that I got going on, which I'm hoping you're going to reduce for me. If you've never heard of it, I want to know that too. So I'll report that back to you. So it looks like we're running out of time. If nobody's got anything else, I'll stick around for a little bit.
I have one question. This is for the integrators. So you're awarded a contract, you're awarded a job. Who in your mind enforces that specification all the way to the day of being tested and completed? What typically do you see?
I think we all do. I mean, part of our problem is we build it to the spec, and we hold ourselves accountable. But that obviously raises the cost level against an integrator that tries to skirt under those things and hide things or not meet the spec.
Once it's in your hands, I mean, are you communicating with the consultant, or do you have that communications all the way
That's
through?
what I'm lobbying for.
Yeah, that's what I'm lobbying for.
Consultants aren't even retained past the BAFO. And, you know, you're running into field conditions, and now you're only communicating to the GC, who doesn't really know or want to know about anything that's long-term. There's no operations people that you're allowed to be communicating with, because your communications train is to the GC. That's why if the consultant is embedded through the construction process and whatnot, we have that sanctioned open dialogue opportunity.
You're saying they should be?
Should be. Right. But there's no requirement. I mean, you know, that's the purpose of this meeting here, is to, and I think you're going to articulate that tomorrow, right?
Pontificate.
And I'm right behind you on that one.
Their point is that there's a lot of ambiguity in the specification, so, you know, how would you govern that, or how would you enforce that to the end if it's so, you know, open? But, you know, from a consultant standpoint, I'm kind of curious, do you see it the same way? I mean, I can tell you right now from the people that have been at this meeting, there's some of you guys that are on that job site the last day, and you're seeing it all the way through. And I know that there's people in here that do that.
I think what we're getting at here is an ambiguity. My goal as a designer, as a consultant, is to make sure that I get as few RFIs as possible. Now, if I get none, there's a big problem. Right? I expect I should get no more than 5 or 10 of them. Okay, so if I'm getting 20 or 30, then I didn't do my job. If I'm getting 5 or 10, that's normal. If I'm getting nothing, then I've got an integrator that probably shouldn't be there. But what I think is important, what I've started doing in the last couple of years, is including in that specification another document that we call intent of design. This is what I intend to happen. I intend that when door A opens, camera B pops up on the access control and shows me an alarm. And I've got instructions for that $10 an hour operator to follow and acknowledge that and do. So I'm including that intent down so that I can eliminate those RFI questions.
Yeah, when you've got platforms that integrate, they can either interface or integrate, or deeply integrate. You know, that's such subjective.
It can be a contact closure, or it can be, the intent though is not a detailed description. Right. It's a detailed description of the outcomes and not necessarily a detailed description of how it should be wired. Yeah. In the spec, that should be part of it. We're going to have to, we've got, is it about time we got 1 minute? 1 minute? 1 minute? Any final short answers? Okay, great. I'll stick around here for a few minutes if anybody wants to. Can you guys stick around here for a couple of minutes if anybody wants to talk? Yeah. Let's thank all our panelists here.